Hi, I'm David Reuille. I'm a teaching artist with Think 360 Arts. I started doing this type of work where I use dance and arts um, to connect with core content. I started that back in about 2003 with a company I was working at in Ohio. They asked me to set up their education program work going into schools, and I started that then. And then when I moved to Colorado, it just seemed a natural fit of what I had already been doing with Think 360 Arts, and I started working with them probably around 2007. And I'm a dancer and choreographer for the most part, but I have a lot of background in theater and visual arts and music as well. So I bring a lot of those components to my workshops as I go along.
And I'm Kirsten Pihlaja. I'm an ECE teacher in Denver Public Schools. This is my 30th year teaching in DPS, but my 18th year as an ECE teacher. I've had two residencies, two artists in residence from Wolf Trap over the last few years, and they've both been great.
30 years, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's so you got to have two, and it was great when I entered the classroom at Centennial, another DPS school, and all the teachers knew about Wolf Trap, and I was pretty new in my role as executive director with 360, but it was wonderful that the word had gotten around. And so, yeah, I think if you both want to just share an overview, David, you could jump in here if you wanted to talk about the process. But Chris, if you want to also share about that collaborative process of planning.
We start off by having an initial meeting, and the meeting is really kind of a get to know what the program is for the teachers in the classroom and the administrators. Kind of block out like what the structure of the program is, how many days, what it might look like in each 3-block session that we typically go through. I think a lot of trepidation for some teachers coming in because they don't have much experience in bringing, specifically with me, bringing dance to the classroom. Kirsten had a specific desire to bring me in because she had a lot of active students and she wanted some movement in the classroom. And my observation is, again, a side note, Kirsten was already doing great movement in the classroom, so that was awesome coming in. I already saw that. So we do some planning, look at what a good schedule would be. And then the first step for me is to just go to look at the classroom and see what the classroom looks like, what the classroom management style is, what the space looks like, what the students' typical line time or work in the center would look like, so I get an idea of how the teacher both communicates with the students and the level of the students' engagement or non-engagement, depending on what it is, and any other things in the classroom that might spark out. We typically talk about some core content in the first planning meeting. In that first planning meeting, I'm kind of getting an idea of what the teachers might want me to bring in for the first lesson. I have a lot of lessons that I've done over the years, and I have a lot in my pocket, and oftentimes those will fit in initially for the first session, but sometimes I will do custom stuff for the first session. And then once I start doing the first 3 sessions, the teachers start to get a feel for what the workshop will look like. How the workshop goes. We typically do a 30-minute session with ECE, and in that session, I'll do a opening introduction for, and there are different types of warm-ups that can do that introduction. We do name game, we do all kinds of different warm-ups that we can do to get the students moving, engaged, stretching, and then we start to go into, from after that warm-up, we'll go into the actual lesson, and that lesson can vary from literature to mathematics, to science, to, across the gamut, social emotional work, across the gamut of what the teachers might want. Oftentimes, I have seen that the same blocks of education are happening around the same time. So obviously, some of the stuff that I have done in the past works really successfully because the teachers typically are teaching the same content around the same time of year. And then we have a planning meeting and talk about what that looks like, what the first 3 sessions look like, and then talking about what the next 3 sessions might look like in planning. And I really started to get into trying to engage the teachers as quickly as possible, because part of what I'm doing is not just I'm not just teaching the students, but I'm trying to engage the teachers and give them the tools and the courage. Oftentimes it takes some courage for some teachers to be able to do movement in their classroom. And there are a lot of tools and resources I can give the teachers to engage them, but I slowly try and ease them into it. But really with the long-term plan, as we do the last 3 sessions, that we'll be really collaborating on the last 3 sessions, and that the teacher and I will both be helping to create the lessons on the last 3 sessions, and some of the lessons the teacher will lead, some of them I lead, and I'm there to step in if the teacher has a hiccup or has something that maybe could be tweaked and changed a little bit more successfully, and so that's the gist of it. Sometimes we have an overall performance for the parents at the end. Sometimes we do a video putting together what we've done, and sometimes it's just the all 9 sessions. And that's the work.
And I will just add to that, because that's one thing that I have really found with both of my residents from Wolf Trap is it's very collaborative. The artists are very communicative about what they can do, and also asking me what I want out of the experience, what I want for my students. David was very supportive in the curriculum that we were already working on, and really integrated well with that for us. It was very engaging. I mean, the children loved it. I enjoyed myself a lot, and I really appreciate that sort of hand holding as we went through it, and then the gradual release. And I felt very confident in that aspect of the whole situation.
Kirsten, I'd love to hear a little more. You're such an experienced educator. And I know when we talk about Wolf Trap as this gradual release model, in my mind, I often think of newer ACE educators, newer teachers in the field. But I've also talked to longtime teachers at all ages, at all grade levels, excuse me, in the last year, and heard from a number of them that, having a residency made them feel like they wanted to stay in the field when it's been a really hard time. So yeah, so the question I had written out was, retaining passionate and talented educators like yourself in early childhood education can be a real challenge. The field is facing, it's always been a challenge, I think, and then it seems like the last 4 years have been especially challenging. And so if you want to share a little bit about maybe how the Wolf Trap residencies, and you've had 2 of them, may have impacted your journey in the field.
Well, up until this last year, I've been teaching half-day sessions. And so my students don't go to specials. They don't have music or art or any other class here at the school, except for what we have in my classroom. And, like, I can be silly and I sing and we do reenactments and stuff. But I think having someone who is their passion and their focus is in the arts really helps broaden the experience that my students are able to have, because we don't have that class as part of our school. I do it, but I just feel like it's a support for me as a teacher to sort of expand my knowledge and my experience and provide that experience for my students. And that's what I want for my kids. I want my kiddos to have a well-rounded education, and having arts is so important, in not my opinion, just period. It's so important. And having specialists come in and be able to provide that for my students has just been wonderful. I don't know. I have, so I don't get stuck in a rut just doing the same thing over and over, having that other adult in with different ideas and different experiences about how to go about presenting whatever we're focusing on it's just been really valuable, because I do feel the arts in all education, but especially early childhood, is important, because any creative time is really beneficial for the kiddos for their social growth and their emotional growth and their creativity and the use of their imagination. It's just broadened by the experience of having an artist in residence in the classroom. I just, golly, I think it just is so important that kiddos learn how to express themselves in different ways and freely, and it really it supports all the skills that we're working on, social skills and foundational skills. It's just providing a broader experience, and I don't know. I'm a fan. I'm just such a fan.
So if I hear you, you're saying, that you have this strong belief. You've seen the arts in action in your classroom over the last 3 decades, 18 years in early childhood. But it sounds to me also like, you're saying that the collaboration brings fresh ideas in. You're a master teacher at this point, in your career, but it's always beneficial to have other ideas come in. And have you found that you integrate those after the workshop or after, the residencies have wrapped up?
Yeah, I was, what I remember is after we've wrapped up the residencies, I always take notes in the meetings that I have with the artists, and so I can continue to refer to those notes for the rest of the school year with the kids to sort of keep reviewing and remembering those activities that we did with our artists, and it brings back the memories for the kids. It sort of becomes a little more ingrained in them, hopefully, as we go.
So it sounds like it works on 2 levels. The kids get this amazing experience that you feel like they probably are going to remember their whole lives. And you're also being sustained and supported. And that for you it sounds like success is that the kids have this whole learning, they get the full learning with the arts integrated, and that makes sense.
Yes.
And
yes.
yeah.
You're so much more coherent than I am.
Oh no, I think
Yes, absolutely. All of
I
that.
love hearing from, you all have been in the trenches working and doing this together, and I haven't gotten to experience one of these. So I'm very much in that boat of like, could you explain it to me? I've watched the videos, I've gone to trainings, but there's nothing like being in that classroom, and the Wolf Trap has extensive research behind it. And probably when you're in the classroom, you're not using a catalog of research in your head of like checking boxes of what each part of the residency is achieving, but given that research about this multi-sensory experience, can you talk a little bit, David, about how you design, and it's really a collaborative process, right, of designing these lessons, but you're bringing your teaching artistry to engage different senses, and maybe with this residency specifically, if you want to reflect on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, when I go in to approach a residency, I am trying to look a lot of what I can bring in terms of dance. And dance inherently has a sense to it. And I don't, I've been thinking about what to call that sense, a full body awareness, a full body proprioception, whatever it is. But that's a different thing than just, it's a combination of so many different senses, but even if you were to close your eyes and be moving, there's still this awareness of moving that brings a sense to what you're doing. There's nothing really like it. I mean, I think humans started dancing probably as one of the first art forms. So besides that, I do bring in a lot of musicality to it. We do a lot of rhythm work, and when we do rhythm work, I do it in a way that we're actually engaging the body fully in that rhythm, whether we're tapping our chests to feel that the feel of that heartbeat, boom, ba, ba, boom, ba, ba, or we're using different limbs connected together to touch, so we feel that sensory input as much as possible, trying to engage that sensory input from the very beginning of class. Especially at the younger age, they really catch on to that sensory input of moving the body and touching different parts of the body to different parts. We can do cross-lateral movement. We can do same-side homolateral movement to engage different coordination skills. But then as we go along, as I develop works, we try and include more and more senses into that, and engaging and making the students listen. For instance, the different quality of a leaf falling versus the quality of a rock falling is a lot different quality. So making them both think visually and seeing how a leaf falls versus a rock falls is like a sight engagement, but it's also, once they start to do it with their hand, it becomes a sensory engagement of how it moves as well. So many things that I don't know how to engage the words for it, but you know, even when we're working on social emotional, to be able to see a picture of a emotion like happy, and then to engage it in your body is a whole different experience. How would you become an emotion, right? And that's a really keen thing for the students to be able to demonstrate what an emotion would look like or feel like in their body. And I try to, as much as possible, demonstrate, but also to elicit from the students their own reaction to it. At this age group, it sometimes can be difficult, but I remember we had one student that was highly creative. He wanted to engage in every way, sometimes besides what we were doing, but he came up with some really amazing creative ways of accomplishing the things that were kind of outside of the box of what we were trying to work on. But being able to both explain that that was amazing what he just did, but then also to have him see what the framework of what we were trying to do at the same time, I think was really engaging for him as well. I sometimes will bring in, like you were talking about, I do an autumn one a lot with leaves. And when I do that, I do bring in the actual leaves from a tree. And oftentimes I will pass that around, or I'll pass bark around so that they can feel the bark and feel what it feels like. We look a lot about what colors are, you know, which colors. We do a lot of discussion on colors. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much I could go on and on about the amount of sensory stuff I bring into it.
Well, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about, you know, I have a 4-year-old myself, and language can be a challenge, and early learners. And I know the Wolf Trap model supports literacy and language; it's built into it. But also dance is its own language, and movement is its own language, and they're able to use these other modalities of communicating that you're teaching them, and understanding your emotions and all of that. It's just
Absolutely. And oftentimes I see students, and I think I experienced this in your class, Kirsten. I've experienced it in most of my classes. Students that teachers will say are very shy and don't want to participate, that when it becomes to a place where they just have to communicate with their body, they're like right up there and doing it. They're coming out of their shell and engaging with their body because they don't have to engage vocally. And it's really kind of a magical thing for me to be able to capture those students that oftentimes don't want to engage, and finding both the energy and excitement and the tools to engage those students as well.
Being able and encouraged to use a different way of communicating is a great skill to have, and to have it presented in such a fun way is really, really helpful for some of those quieter kids, but not just quieter kids, the older kids, the louder kids too, the more verbal kids too. Absolutely.
Yeah, and to develop that confidence to step up into that space, and um, be feeling confident in the movement. Sometimes I know in the language side, there's such a wide range of kiddos, you know, development at this age, and they're all developing. And like you said, Chris, some are quite loud and confident already, and maybe quite verbal, overly nonstop verbal. And then there's some that I know in my son's classroom are have very limited language and are really struggling. And so, yeah, how beautiful to hear about all these different ways you support them as whole learners in developing that critical time period between 0 to 5?
I mean, I would say if talking to other early childhood educators, if they're considering this, it's like going, we don't have time. We have to cover all this curriculum. All of everything is supported through both the residents. I mean, you're supporting the literacy, you're supporting the math, you're supporting that self-regulation, which is so important for what we're trying to do with the little ones. Everything is supported. Learning about themselves, the confidence, the help. Learning some empathy, helping a friend, cheering on a friend. Um, Everything that we are trying to do in the classroom on a daily is supported by the activities that the resident, the artist and resident brings in to us, no matter if it is dance or if it's storytelling or if it's puppetry or whatever. It's all supported. So it's like you're not losing any of your curriculum time, you're enhancing your what you're doing by having it presented in a modality you as the classroom teacher might not think of or might not feel comfortable doing initially on your own.
On my side, I mean, that's amazing, Kirsten, because that's our goal. On my side, too, I mean, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is providing teachers resources to fulfill the art standards that still need to be fulfilled. You know, oftentimes teachers don't understand what pathway is and how they can teach pathway. Some teachers don't understand how to easily create sequence with dance and create systems where they can, both the teacher can remember it as well as the students can remember it. How do you get a student to create a story arc, even though it's a simple story arc? How do you get the students to create a story arc with their movement? So those are like dance standards and theater standards, and even potentially some of that with patterning and all that music standards that we're providing for the teachers, that it seems simple for us to do, but sometimes is very challenging for teachers who don't know anything about it. So my goal is to at least leave the teacher with some of the ideas of what the dance standards are, the music standards, theater standards, that they can continue to use those in the classroom.
Thank you so much for everything you're doing for our kiddos, and for bringing Wolf Trap into the classroom. And we're going to do another residency with you in the future.
Yes, hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes.
And yeah, thank you again. Really grateful for all this work. As a parent myself, you both make it look easy, and it's a lot. I know every day it's a lot. So just express my gratitude to you both.